Well, 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 look what we have here. A fresh batch of candidates who just underperformed. They could have been so much more accurate and so much more detailed. These poor characters really could have been so much better, but LEGO just said, no, we don't have the budget. Or just don't want to. I mean, at the end of the day, we'll never know. In front of you are 10 different LEGO Marvel minifigures who I feel like just did not get the attention to detail that they deserved, and a lot of which can be upgraded using pretty common and pretty easy to get a hold of LEGO parts. Unfortunately, some of these fixes are a bit too ambitious and require Photoshop, but I thought I would show you all of them today so that you can hopefully improve some of your minifigures and make your collection look even better than it already does. First up on the chopping block is Captain Marvel, and firstly, I just hate Captain Marvel as a character altogether. I thought she was really kind of boring, to be completely honest, and this minifigure sort of matches that personality, to be completely honest, because the only thing that is relatively special about her or somewhat interesting is this torso print, which looks amazing, and then you get to the arms and it just feels like a bit of a mess, and you look at the legs and it gets even worse, and not to mention the face. I mean, it's a bit of an upgrade, I do have to say it, and at least the hair's accurate and is in a really nice color, so I'll give it that. But to make me hate this character slightly less, I'm actually going to take some legs off this CMF figure, which came with a penguin. I'm pretty sure it was series 9, but do not quote me on that. Either way, we're going to take this CMF that reminds me of Stupid Sexy Flanders, and we're going to take her legs and we're going to put them onto our Captain Marvel minifigure. Considering these legs already existed, I'm not too sure why LEGO didn't do this, because I feel like it just sort of combines the colors of this figure all together just a tiny bit better. Personally, I'm going to leave her arms as just one solid blue because I don't think that the bright blue of the top of this figure is pretty accurate. I also don't think that there was too much red included on the arms, enough to justify dual molded arms, so I'm just going to leave our Captain Marvel like this, and all of a sudden, I hate her slightly less. She still looks like she would go and ask to speak to my manager, but I mean, there's only so much we can do here. Next up, we have the Watcher from What If, and there is a couple of things that I would love to do with him. Firstly, if the Hercules arms were the right color, I would swap them out so that he has that little cufflink detail. But the biggest thing for the Watcher for me is honestly the size of his head, especially since we got this beautiful big thick Thanos head. I just feel like using that headpiece, considering it can fit on a regular minifigure torso, would have been the perfect opportunity. I mean, realistically, this cape piece that they're using probably wouldn't work. You'd have to create a much bigger one, or even just take it off completely, but I feel like having that head would have made this figure look even better. I think he still works pretty well the way he is, but at the same time, I think the head's a tiny bit more accurate just because of how out of proportion the Watcher looks like in What If. Like, he probably would have fallen over, his brain's a bit too big. Next up is Falcon from Captain America Civil War, and honestly, I really like this figure. Firstly, this wing piece is spectacular and so much better than the brick-built wings that they gave us in Infinity War. I love him. I think his torso is fantastic, but like a lot of minifigures these days, can honestly be improved by just grabbing a handy-dandy pair of dual-molded legs. Luckily, these are pretty common. They came on a variety of Batman figures, as well as that one super exclusive Imperial officer from the Imperial Star Destroyer, but they're still pretty cheap that we can very easily just rip off Falcon's legs as if he was caught in a really big battle with Steve's shield there, and just stick them on him, and suddenly he's got a tiny bit more detail, looks a bit better. Also, the boots tie in with the color of his gloves as well as his guns, and even his hair if you want to be very specific, and just makes him look a tiny bit more cared for. Then again, Falcon did get a lot of love, care, and attention when it came to his Captain America version, but, you know, we've got to fix up the old ones too. Now, the Daily Bugle in 2021 gave us a variety of exciting figures, one of which was Blade, and a lot of people thought this was Spider-Man Noir at the beginning. We love good old Lego leaks. Now, if Blade's torso was a tiny bit different, I would give him that coattails piece to sort of make it look like his trench coat's flowing a bit better. However, it seems to stop pretty far to the side that I feel like it's not quite gonna work. Also, depending on which comic version you look at of Blade and all of the fan casting and fan art that people have done, you might want to to give him some hair instead of leaving him quite so bald. Now, there's a couple of hair pieces you could do for this depending on your personal taste. I mean, you could go and steal the Falcon that you just upgraded and stick his hair on, but to me, it looks like just a tiny bit too much. I mean, it works fine for him, but personally, I'd rather make Blade a tiny bit more stylish. So instead of using that Falcon, you could always take the newer Captain America version with his weird sort of cap top hair, just like Tommy C. Brooks did, and stick his hair on the top. And honestly, again, he looks a tiny bit more stylish, looks pretty cool, but personally, it's not my favorite hairpiece for him. Because throughout my research, I sort of went back to the good old days of LEGO Dimensions and saw this hairpiece from that random guy from the 80s movie, The A-Team, that I've never watched and have no intentions on ever watching, and ordered his hairpiece off Bricklink. It was relatively cheap, came in a couple of sets, and I just stick this on his head, and honestly, it makes Blade look super groovy, looks super stylish, and matches some of the variations that I've seen on him whenever I search Blade onto Google and read about his times as a crime-fighting vampire hunter sort of thingy. Moving along, and next up to be fixed is my favorite underrated superhero right now, and that is ShangChi. Now, these minifigures just really got completely overlooked. There was a huge issue, firstly, when it came to the face and the fact that the skin tones didn't match up with other Asian characters that LEGO has depicted. Personally, I think the skin tone matches a lot better, but I just look at it and I'm like, why are we using Draco's face print? Like, I just don't think that this matches at all. So the first thing I want to do is actually swap it out with the young Han Solo face. Now, unfortunately, the eyebrows do not match. They're far too brown, far too light. However, I feel like you get a lot more of that sharp cheekbone detailing that I think Simu Liu as an actor has. I just don't like the way that the eyebrows look, so I'm just gonna Photoshop them and make it look a tiny bit better. Now, the next physical change that I want to do to ShangChi, which luckily doesn't involve half Photoshop this time, is actually something that I saw mini superheroes today do, as well as something that was suggested in the comments section of a previous video, and that is taking Vacation Robin from the LEGO Batman movie series 2 and stealing his arms and putting them on ShangChi. Now, in the movie, ShangChi's shirt is rolled up. It's not quite short sleeve like the LEGO version, but when I saw mini superheroes today do it, honestly, thought it was a lot better, and especially after seeing that comment, I went and ordered Robin instantly, because why wouldn't I want to take a step to make my minifigure even look slightly better? So unfortunately, we're going to deprive Robin of the enjoyment of eating his ice cream because I need to steal his arms real quick. Now, the last thing I want to do is, unfortunately, again, using Photoshop, and that is to actually give ShangChi some shoe detailing. He had these really sick sneakers on in the movie that was like a huge part of like the costume design because it sort of represented his more American, modernized sort of life rather than his authentic Asian background, and they just completely overlooked it. So in order to sort of zhuzh him up a tiny bit more, I want to draw him his little sneakers here because he had this amazing drip and none of it got immortalized in Lego form, which is honestly kind of sad. So here is my ideal ShangChi complete with Photoshop, and here is the version that we can very closely create, and you could get a tiny bit better if you're really brave and whip out the Sharpie on the actual eyebrows. I'm terrified, not doing it, never doing it, sorry fam. Next up is Loki, and by Loki I mean Sylvie, who doesn't quite look like Sylvie, she looks like a teenage girl. So in order to fix that, the first thing that I want to do is steal Princess Leia from Star Wars and actually take her head and swap it out. Now, this will make her look the exact same as Captain Marvel, which is kind of unfortunate, especially for Sylvie. I don't know why you would want to be anywhere like Captain Marvel. Nothing against Brie Larson, I just hate Captain Marvel. And we're gonna swap out her hair to actually make her look a tiny bit more like her age and less like she's gonna be crying if she doesn't get Harry Styles tickets. Honestly, same though. It also makes her look a bit more aggressive, which I personally like. Even with her regular face, it just looks so much more actually like Sylvie. And the other two upgrades that I want to show you are more just variations. If you don't want to have Sylvie with her crown, you can just grab Mad Eye Moody. This one in particular is the one from the Harry Potter CMF Series 1, but the one from the new Hogwarts Moments one works as well, as the hairpiece is the exact same. Therefore, you can sort of give her her more relaxed look. The parting is off to the side a bit, so it doesn't quite work as well, but if you wanted to use this for photography purposes or even just have different variations of Sylvie, or should I say different variants of Sylvie, that will work too. Anyway. I personally prefer the one with the horns, however, I did want to show you that option just in case. The other thing you can do to upgrade your Sylvie is actually give her a dark green cape. You can steal one off a Harry Potter Quidditch player or Hella or just a variety of characters. Honestly, these cape pieces aren't too rare or too hard to find, and you can just stick that on and sort of give her her look from the earlier Loki episodes and make her look a bit more cunning, a bit more evil, and just a tiny bit more detailed. I mean, considering this is a CMF and she's got plain black legs, you wouldn't think she'd need it. Turns out she kind of does. And now she actually looks like the more dangerous Loki variant that you'd sort of expect rather than happy teenage girl. Next up is Endgame Thor, and I'm pretty sure you'll all be able to see where I'm going with this because Endgame Thor does not look like Endgame Thor, and a lot of that came down to the fact that just Disney didn't want to leak anything, and apparently depressed Thor was one of those things, so we got this weird version instead. However, luckily the Infinity Saga sets rolled around and we actually got a proper version of Thor. So in order to sort of upgrade that Endgame Quantum Realm suit version, I'm just gonna steal Thor's head and hair. You can also take this off the Bro Thor version of the figure. Either one works, he looks exactly the same. And we're just gonna swap the head and hair out. Very simple, very easy, and now he actually looks like he did in the film. Imagine that. Those Endgame versions were really just sort of a letdown, just as the sets were, to be completely honest. So many of them needed changing and upgrading. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly. Next up is Hela from Thor Ragnarok, and realistically as well, she should have a dark green cape. However, I was a bit lazy and stole it and already used it for Sylvie, so we're just gonna pretend for today. Now, Hela in her set did actually come with a hair variation, which was that black sort of half up, half down, tied up hairstyle, and it looked like this. However, I really don't recall Cate Blanchett's hair looking anywhere near as neatly styled as that. No offense to Cate Blanchett, but she honestly looks like a drowned rat in Thor Ragnarok, and there's one hairpiece that I can think of one particular character that really captured that look, and that is actually the centaurs from Harry Potter. Woo! This black hairpiece really just captures the oily, greasy, disgusting nature that I recall from Thor Ragnarok. So in order to sort of create that Hela variation and actually have it look like Hela, we're gonna steal that hair and put it on her, and all of a sudden she looks like the greasy, oily mess that has been trapped in hell for several thousands of years. Ta-da! I mean, she'd probably look better with the cape, but I'm not putting it back on her. Heading back to the ShangChi characters, we've got Death Dealer, and this is an incredibly simple fix. Now, you might not recognize that this is Death Dealer purely because he doesn't have that long, luxurious ponytail that he did in the movies, and that was such a common fix. Either Lego didn't get handed an updated sort of version of this character and it was just concept art and maybe didn't have the ponytail, or they just didn't want to spend the extra couple of cents in order to bring this ponytail back into mass production. Oh, hang on a second, it's in the Disney castle. Never mind. My guess is on concept art then, as we're gonna steal this really weird sort of like black rubbery piece. It was in like one figure from Ninjago. It's currently in the Disney castle, and if you shove it on top of Death Dealer's head, all of a sudden he has that luxurious ponytail, and it really captures the motion and the attack and the violence of this character, which I quite like. Again, very simple fix. Don't know how common this piece is to get off Bricklink, but at least it's in the Disney castle right now, so you could order it off Bricks and Pieces if you really wanted to, and make this figure just slightly better and a tiny bit taller as well. Now we can ride all the rides at Disneyland. And last but not least is Teen Groot. Now, in terms of being, you know, a teen Groot, honestly, this minifigure works pretty well. But if you ever wanted to make a full-size Groot and not have it look like he was the size of a building, aka the original Guardians of the Galaxy sets, you could always just make your own, and I am taking absolutely zero credit for this because I completely just took the mock and built my own version of Hachiruku's Groot mock. I saw this on Instagram and I immediately clicked over onto YouTube and wanted to learn how to build it, and after a couple of months of getting up off my butt, I actually ordered all of the pieces and built my own version. Luckily, I had quite a few of these pieces lying around in my collection, so I honestly didn't have to order that many, and I'm very excited because now it means I can have a Groot that's actually to scale. Now, originally, I didn't even have this figure. I didn't care for it, but I wanted this headpiece, and it was cheaper to buy the whole figure than just the head. So now I can stick his head onto this little body, which if you would like the tutorial of how to build it, I will leave it linked in the description down below. And all of a sudden, you have Groot. He can't really stand on the iron base in the Hall of Armor if I just balance him. And there you have a sort of more minifigure scale Groot. He's not too tall, he's not too short, still has full mobility. You just can't really attach him to studs, but I don't care because I thought this mock was really cool, and honestly, it is so much better in real life. Hachiroku24, thank you so much for sharing this. I absolutely love this model. Like I said, if you would like to learn how to actually build this model for Groot, I will leave it linked in the description down below. And you can also click here as I'll link it in the cards at the top. Groot, how do you feel about your new look?
I am
Awesome, I'm glad for you, buddy. So there are all 10 of the Marvel minifigure upgrades. Luckily, you can do a lot of these very quickly, easily, and cheaply on your own. Unfortunately, some of which are a bit too ambitious and not possible, but overall, I really feel like this makes these figures look even better, even more accurate, and really just make the figure actually look like the character in the case of Endgame Thor here. So let me know if you try any of these out and adapt them into your own collections yourself. And if you want to check out the other videos in these series as well, like I said, I will leave them linked at the end here. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later.